Welcome to Unpacking Peanuts, the podcast where three cartoonists take an in-depth look at the greatest comic strip of all time, Peanuts by Charles Schulz.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is Unpacking Peanuts, where we're in 1973 talking about the work of our hero and idol, Charles Schulz. Hope you're all doing well out there. We're doing well here because it's a day we get to hang out and talk about comics, which is the best thing in the world to do. I'm your host for this evening. I'm Jimmy Gownley. I'm also a cartoonist. I did the Amelia Rules series, 7 Reasons Not to Grow Up, and The Dumbest Idea Ever. Joining me, as always, are my pals, co-hosts, and fellow cartoonists. He's a playwright and a composer, both for the band Complicated People, as well as for this very podcast. He's the original editor of Amelia Rules, the co-creator of the original comic book Price Guide, and the creator of such great strips as Strange Attractors, A Gathering of Spells, and Tangled River. It's Michael Cohen.
Hey there.
And he's the executive producer and writer of Mystery Science Theater 3000, a former vice president of Archie Comics, and he's the creator of the Instagram sensation Sweetest Beasts. And he's coming to a town near you. It's Harold Buchholz.
Hello.
So, guys, the Unpacking Peanuts hotline was ringing off the hook this week.
Really?
Yeah, so we got some stuff from some listeners. I thought before we get into the strips and get into talking about 1973, we see what our listeners have been, what they have on their minds.
Sure.
All right. So this was from Shaylee Robson.
Hi, it's Shaylee calling. One of your followers from Winnipeg. Holy cow, this is crazy. I just want to say that I always look forward to your episodes every Tuesday, and what I love most about the 70s so far is how Peppermint Patty and Marcy have been getting screen time. So you could say Peppermint Patty is one of my favorites. Anyway, disconnect's gotta go. I hope you guys have a good day and be of good cheer. Bye.
Yeah, be of good cheer, Shaylee.
Yeah, be of good
Thank
cheer.
You.
Well, I'm a huge Peppermint Patty and Marcy fan, so I have to agree with that. I'm really enjoying their strips. What do you guys think?
It's definitely changed the flavor and tone of the strip. I think when I think of this era, I've just got to think of Peppermint Patty and also kind of this Woodstock Snoopy thing that seems to define this era for me.
Yeah, Woodstock and Peppermint Patty are definitely, I think, the icons of the 70s. I have to agree with that. Got another call from our pal Joshua Stauffer from good old Lancaster, PA.
Hi there, this is Joshua Stauffer, and I am thoroughly enjoying your lively conversations about Peanuts in the 70s. So, what do I like best about this era? Well, we are seeing lots of longer storylines in the comic strip, which are always a lot of fun to read. In fact, nearly 2/3 of the source material for the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show came from these longer sequences from the 70s.
Wow.
Speaking of animation, lots of spectacular specials came out in the 70s. My favorite one from this era, There's No Time for Love, Charlie Brown. That's the one where the gang goes on a field trip to an art museum, but Charlie Brown, Sally, Peppermint Patty, and Marcy get lost, and they end up in a supermarket instead. This special marks the first animated appearance of Marcy, and it's the first one where we get to see how Peppermint Patty feels about Chuck. As a kid, I loved field trips, I loved museums, I loved grocery stores, and I loved Peppermint Patty. To see all of those things in one special was just thrilling. Anyway, it's a pleasure talking to you again, and as always, be of good cheer.
All right. Well, Josh, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Also, and I sent you guys this. This was from our listener, Mary in Colorado. She sent us a letter. This was a text to the Peanuts hotline. She sent us a story from the New York Post that said the Coffee Grounds estate, the original Schulz estate where he raised his kids and had his photographer studio, art studio, and the 3-hole golf course and all that stuff, is for sale.
Wow.
$3.9 million.
That seems a little low for California.
For California,
property.
right?
And that's a big. Is it the entire?
Well, why don't we and all our readers just buy
Let's
it
chip in
and just send in that money to Unpacking Peanuts.
If we get $3.9 million in mud pie donations, T-shirts and stuff doesn't count because there's overhead. So it's got to be a straight up mud pie or Patreon donation. If we get $3.9 million, we will put a bid in.
Excellent.
right.
That'd be a
Cool.
great place to podcast from. I would enjoy that.
Wow, yeah, that would be something else. That is a large, 3-hole golf course. I mean, that tells you something.
Yeah, right. And there's a miniature golf course. I think there's stables and stuff. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
And that's all survived. Do we know that?
Oh,
Have you ever gone onto Zillow and?
I'm looking actually right now. Hang on.
Wow.
It may have been broke. Oh, it's not quite as big as it used to be.
Okay.
But
there's 1.5 holes for golf.
The one containing the Schulz Art Studio and a second parcel containing a 4-hole golf course, I believe, are what's actually for sale.
So you get the 4-hole golf course.
Wow.
So we just moved up.
Wow. Everybody does need to go on to this New York Post story because there's photographs of the place. It is stunning.
Thanks, Mary.
Really? Wow. So why such a bargain? I mean, are they just hoping they'll bid it up, get the bidding war going?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there's obviously a dedicated Schulz museum, but it would be pretty cool if that space were also kind of something to commemorate Schulz in one way or another.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Brady Bunch house, how it was bought.
Right.
By was HGTV bought it, and then they made it look inside like it did in the original TV show, and it's now just sitting there. I don't know anyone's living there or not, but. We did walk by there when the Turner Classic Movies Festival in April, and we did see the random recycling bin and trash can. So I think that maybe somebody is actually staying there.
That's pretty awesome.
Going through the Brady Bunch trash is not allowed.
No, I can imagine that would be a pain to whoever does live there. Well, anyway, go on this New York Post and just type in Schulz or something. I'm sure it'll come up. Anyway, really, really cool. And our last text for the Peanuts hotline is from super listener Anne. And she just wanted us to know that we were giving Peppermint Patty too much credit when Charlie Brown brings up the little red-haired girl and insults Peppermint Patty after they're leaving the fair. Because, as she pointed us out, Peppermint Patty made it very clear that Charlie Brown was her last choice.
that is easy to forget when it's Charlie Brown because he's always getting that. But yeah, that's probably of the two digs, she got the worst one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're right there, Ann.
So it is so fun to hear from you guys. I love it when you write in. I love it when you call the hotline. So please continue to do that. If you want to reach out to us, you can do it on social media. We're at Unpack Peanuts on both Instagram and Twitter. We're Unpacking Peanuts on Facebook, and you can email us through our website, unpackingpeanuts.com, and we would love to hear from you. And, of course, you can call the hotline, the number of which is
717-219-4162.
Phone line's always open 24/7. All right, so that's old business. Now, getting to 1973, Mr. Harold Buchholz, do you have anything to let us know about Mr. Schulz's life?
Yeah, this is another year of change for Charles Schulz. The strips themselves, I think they do have a bit more of a soap opera feel to them because they're getting a little more extended. And as Joshua was mentioning, a lot of that material served well in the animated specials and the TV shows in later times. And I can't help but think that he's running not just a strip now. He's got this large franchise. Story-wise, the TV shows are something that have to be on his mind because he's constantly working with Lee Mendelsohn and Bill Melendez to make these shows, and he's got to come up with the premises. And so, I think I see that clearly in the strip now, that the idea of telling longer stories, Schulz is getting a little more comfortable with it, maybe. He's had it under his belt now for about, almost 10 years. So that's interesting to see. The other really big thing that I noticed in the strips themselves was this is a year of sports. There's like 152 strips out of 365 that are about sports or games or in one way or another related or unrelated to, competition. There's hopscotch, there's football, tennis, hockey, gymnastics, fishing, baseball, and even organized snowman building. So, it's quite a year for sports.
Organized snowman building sequence felt very familiar. Especially, I was a basketball coach later when I was in my 20s, and that felt very familiar to me.
Yeah, and even more so today. It seems it's even more more relatable.
Oh, more
all
so
these years
for
later.
For sure.
So much as, I mean, kids were much freer. It seems like, I was growing up in that era, and it does feel like, everything is prearranged by adults for the kids to get involved in.
I think we should call for a Gen X summer. Like they always say, like it's hot girl summer or whatever. And we need to have a Gen X summer. Everybody's outside all the time. You don't come in until the lights come on. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Everyone's got the unique whistle to call everybody home for dinner and all that stuff. Yeah, that would be amazing. Pendulum swing, so I'm guessing sooner or later it's going to swing back the other way. But and I also wanted to mention there are two major things I still haven't gotten into. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode. This is the year that Schulz wins his Emmy for writing on A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, which is a classic episode. And the other big piece about that is that I think Lucy shows up in like a football sequence in the very opening, maybe even before the credits run, and then she's not there anymore. It's like Peppermint Patty and Charlie Brown and Linus and Snoopy and Marcy. All those people are there, but Lucy is interestingly absent. And the other thing that I noticed in that special, there's some really wonderful slapstick stuff with Snoopy and Woodstock, and the song "Little Birdie," which is sung by the composer Vince Guaraldi. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that when we hear the song "Little Birdie, why do you do the things you do?" That's Vince Guaraldi's voice. And somebody pointed out, very interestingly, that this is the first time we've actually heard an adult voice in a special, and it's through his singing. So those are the interesting things related to the strip. And then the last thing I have to share, huge news. Schulz remarries in September to Jean Forsyth Clyde, and then remains married to her until his death in 2000. So that was a huge change in his life, because if you can imagine, he had been divorced, I think in late 72 maybe, and then he's on his own but also preparing for marriage, and now he's wed in September. So it might be interesting to kind of put that filter on as you're listening to us go through the strips this year.
Well, that's good. What a wonderful thing for Mr. Schulz. I have to say, Jeannie Schulz may have said the coolest thing any human has ever said to me, or maybe just the coolest thing any human has ever said. And this was, she was maybe in her late 60s, early 70s at this point. And I was a guest at the museum, and she said, "You could come over in the main house and hang out anytime you want. I'm around every day except Saturday mornings. That's my trapeze lesson."
Oh, wow.
It's like, wow. So, I think when we see a lot of that sporting life that we're seeing in Peanuts this year, I think some of that is her influence. I know she was a big tennis player.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we'd mentioned that football, Linus is reading that football is more popular now than baseball. So there's tons of football strips, and now she's into tennis. He's obviously into skating. He's got the ice rink. So, I mean, how many cartoonists were that active in sports? I mean, that much and that broadly active in sports.
Yeah, when you think of Schulz, you think of sort of this mild-mannered and retiring guy, but he was a very athletic person and played, of all things, hockey, which is like the most physical game you can imagine playing. Very difficult, even if you're only playing in a seniors league or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, he was a very athletic guy. All right. So, Michael.
Yes.
How are we looking at the end of 1972? How are we looking on the tier list? And how, if at all, do you think we're going to be changing it by the end of this year?
I think it's going to get really scrambled by the end of this year. But just to review, here's the tier list from 72. Now, we broke it down into 5 categories. And the top billing, is the original Big Four: Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, and Lucy. We added Woodstock a couple years ago. We added Peppermint Patty, and we boosted Sally up to top billing. So we've got 7 in the A list, which leaves Schroeder all by himself on the B list, sitting there at the piano. He's very lonely.
That's how he likes it, though.
Well, yeah, he
probably.
wants to be alone with Beethoven.
Yeah.
C list now. Frida, Violet, Marcy, and Franklin.
Okay.
And that's definitely going to get shaken up a little bit. The D list is with the original Patty, and then Roy from camp, and 5, and then the funny little kid at camp who just says, "Shut up and leave me alone." I don't think we were totally serious about that. And then E is...
He's my new favorite character. I don't know about you, but all right.
And then finally the E tier, which is basically people who have dropped out of the strip. They may come back. We don't know. But Charlotte Braun, 5 twin sisters, 3 and 4. Farron the cat. Jose Peterson, who really only showed up for a couple of strips years ago. And then good old Pigpen. And most tragically, of course, good old Shermie, who was one of the first 3 characters in the strip.
First person to speak.
Yeah.
Where did you have Violet in that, Michael?
No,
Was
well, I
Violet a
boosted
D-lister?
Violet up just because she's still getting marginally more than Patty.
Then Patty. It's just like a C-lister.
Yeah, but this is going to change. So by the end of the year, major shifts in the tier list, earthquake-type shifts.
All right. Well, that is something for us all to look forward to as we move on. Do you guys want to get to the strips?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So if you characters out there want to follow along, how you can do it is you could go right now. You get on your Commodore 64. You dial up to the old internet like Matthew Broderick, and you hop on GoComics.com, and you type in Peanuts 1973, and away you go. Now, if you want a heads up on what exact strips we are going to be covering every single episode, then what you need to do is go over to unpackingpeanuts.com, sign up for the Great Peanuts Reread, and my pal Harold will email you once a month with a newsletter letting you know in advance what strips we're going to be covering. So with that said, let's take it away to 1973. January 2nd. Lucy and Linus are standing outside, looking off into the distance. Linus says, "Do you think there are other people in outer space?" Lucy says, "No, absolutely not." Then she walks away, saying, "If there were, they most certainly would have tried to contact me." Linus, alone in the last panel, says, "That settles that." I think this is a very classic Lucy strip. I absolutely love this one. And I also feel seen by Lucy. I sort of feel this way too, you know? If people are getting abducted, certainly I would have been abducted by now. I'm fascinating, no?
Yeah, that convinced me pretty much. There are no aliens.
Hey, I wonder why this didn't happen at night.
It's a good question.
They too scared to go out at night because there's aliens everywhere.
Have you guys been following the Las Vegas UFO crash that happened a few weeks ago?
I've heard friends tell a little bit about what's up with
How
that,
did I
but I
miss
don't know the
that?
story.
Oh, it apparently, I mean, I don't know. It's being reported regularly on their local news. Something hit Earth in someone's backyard, and they're saying beings got out, fried all their electronics, got back in, blew it away, whatever.
Well, it's Vegas.
It's Vegas. That's true. That could just be
Yeah.
a
But
show,
that didn't
the
stay
new
in
show
Vegas.
at the Mirage.
Yeah, right. I have a comment.
Yeah.
My comment is there was something bugging me this whole year, and I'll get into it deeper as we go through more strips. I was finding the punchlines like not the best, a little weak. Because this could be a totally classic Peanut strip, but it seemed like Schulz could have come up with a better punchline in that fourth panel.
Well, then that settles that. It's
Yeah,
not
I mean
strong
that's
enough for you.
fine, but it's. I think a lot of the strips sort of like end in a way that I found unsatisfying.
Michael, is it the wording? I mean, like, is the idea of that where Linus is saying that settles that? Is it the wording isn't as sharp as you want?
No, it's
or
just
do
not.
you just not like the way that it ends?
It's
that
just
way?
not brilliant. and usually Linus, because he was my favorite character, and he might still be my favorite character, but it seems like he's just not as deep as he used to be.
So if he said, "Thus endeth the conversation" or something.
Yeah, maybe something Linus-y. But anyway, I'll point out more of these as we go.
Okay.
But that's why I didn't think this was a great strip, even though the setup is really good.
We'll keep looking as we go along. And see
Okay.
what we see.
January 7th. Snoopy is lying atop his doghouse. He thinks to himself, why couldn't she just stay away? This is a continuation of a storyline from last year where Poochie, who is someone Snoopy knew for about 12 seconds a few years ago, is back to visit. In panel 2, Snoopy sits up and thinks, why did she have to come back? Then we cut inside. It's Charlie Brown talking to a little curly-haired girl who's sitting on a chair in his house. And Charlie Brown says, Poochie, it's good to see you after all these years. Poochie says, where's Snoopy? Charlie Brown ignores that and says, you were the one who first started to call me Charlie Brown. Poochie says, I wonder if Snoopy will remember me. Charlie Brown says, he's changed a little since you lived around here. Now he leads her out back. He says, he's probably out in the backyard, and Poochie just runs past him saying, I'm really anxious to see him. I remember what a cute little puppy he was. She's now on the back porch yelling, Snoopy? She walks towards the doghouse and says, Snoopy, where are you? Snoopy? In the next panel, she sees Snoopy standing against his doghouse in classic Joe Cool position. In the next panel, he smiles at her with a waggle of the eyebrows. And in the last panel, she walks away past Charlie Brown and says, Thomas Wolfe was right. You can't go home again.
I put a big question mark in my notes when I read this. This is weird. This is really weird. I mean, this is the first time we've seen her. And it looks like he spent some time on this design. I mean, it's definitely with the pom-poms hair.
What do you think of her shoes there?
I didn't even notice her shoes.
Are those like pumps? What would you call those?
She does have
Platforms.
chicken pants
Platform
on.
shoes.
Anyway, does she have naturally curly hair? I wonder, because Frida.
No, I think this is a perm.
Frida would beat her up if she did.
There's no question. This is a perm.
Yeah, I found this just very weird to pull in a new character who actually experienced the Peanuts gang before we ever saw them.
The thing that struck me, Michael, was when we had that panel as Jimmy read it, where he doesn't answer her question about where Snoopy. He says, you were the one who first started to call me Charlie Brown. And I'm thinking along the animated specials and stuff. If he's just like, I want to make something canon in this strip, and I would just have to introduce it. I don't have anything really to do with it other than to introduce the idea. That was kind of I obviously don't know what Schulz was thinking, but that was kind of in my mind, is that Schulz is now juggling two worlds in the animation and then the story, and maybe that's why he just threw it away as Charlie Brown kind of introducing something from their past that we don't know about as a side note.
Yeah. And then the Thomas Wolfe reference. Now, I'd heard of this book because in my early days writing lyrics, I wrote a song called You Can't Go Home Again, even though I hadn't read the book. Thomas Wolfe was writing in the 40s, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty obscure for a punchline.
Well, it's certainly not as common as Albert Pacent or Hune. Or Hey Michael, do you ever notice how all the best albums came out when you were 15?
It's the weirdest thing.
Isn't that a miracle?
It's the weirdest thing.
That's strange.
Yeah, Wolfe died at the age of 37, so he lived from 1900 to 1938. Now, I don't know if it's because of Peanuts or because it's so famous that I know that phrase.
Oh, I've read the book.
Peanuts.
It's a very, very, very long book, and it's very flowery prose. It's good though.
Yeah, but he's hard to read. So I don't know if the book had a revival in the 70s.
Well, we read an excerpt in high school, but that would have been in the 80s, so I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's crazy. He only had two novels published in his lifetime, and then all these posthumous works.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then Tom Wolfe came along and screwed everything up.
Yeah, that really does make him.
Gets me very confused.
Anyway, a very odd strip, I think. I picked it for its oddness.
January 17th. Peppermint Patty's in the classroom looking at a test. She says to herself, "This is some test. Who was Cyril Fox? Discuss briefly the Bronze Age. Who were the Beaker People? Who was Casavellaunus? Who was Canobalin? What were the Causewayed camps?" And in the third panel, Peppermint Patty, just as confused as me, looks at the paper, and in panel 4 she yells, "It's guessing time!"
What sixth grade class or what fourth grade class is this?
Right.
This is like, that's what makes it so funny to me. It's like, what on earth class?
Some very zealous teacher is just taking over this classroom.
I was gonna say it's a first year teacher, definitely.
Yeah, but this is classic stuff, and we're going to see so much of Peppermint Patty in future years, just dealing with how incredibly overwhelming the classwork is, and that it's just beyond her. It's different. It's a different approach than Sally, right? You know, Sally will take you on head on and question the system, and Peppermint Patty's just trying to get through it.
I sure hope Sally doesn't get this teacher.
That's going to be fireworks.
Immovable force and irresistible force and immovable object.
But I do want to. I got very interested in knowing what this teacher is trying to teach Peppermint Patty. So let's have a Peanuts obscurity explained here.
Oh,
All right.
Peanuts obscurities explained.
Who was Cyril Fox? Cyril Fox was an archaeologist and the head of the National Museum of Wales from the 20s to the 40s.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And then who were the Beaker People? Well, it was a band in 1960. No. It was... They were people from the Bronze Age.
That Muppet is descended directly from them.
Right. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, no, the Bronze Age is from 2300 to 1200 BC, and that they were making bronze from melting tin and copper, and so that changed everything for people in that era. The Beaker People were migrants to the United Kingdom from Central and Eastern Europe around 2400 BC, which was just close to that Bronze Age. And they were named after uniquely shaped drinking cups.
Sure.
and nobody really knows why they had such uniquely shaped drinking cups.
Well, they were called the
know.
Beaker People, of course.
Can you imagine if that's what you were
beakers.
known for? You find out 1,000 years later.
You know, for your drinking cups. Like, I would have worked a little harder on my design if I knew.
We would be known as like the big gulp people.
The Peanuts mug people.
The supersized people.
Yeah.
But Casavellaunus was a British defender against Julius Caesar in 54 BC, so he's jumping around quite a bit in this history test. Ultimately, he fell to Caesar, and then Cunibelin, please, all of our archaeologists, historians, please correct us here.
Yeah.
Was a Roman ruler of the southeastern England portion, I think, after it did fall to Caesar in 10 to 40 AD. So, and he's the inspiration for Shakespeare's Cymbeline. And if I didn't pronounce that right, I'm really in trouble. So there you go. That's what Peppermint Patty's expected to know in school.
And the Causewayed camps?
Oh, the Causewayed camps. This is the most interesting of all, the most fascinating.
Oh, no.
So these were pre-castle edifices that were usually done in concentric circles, usually on a hill, to fight off people who are trying to attack them from all sides. So, I don't think Stonehenge is considered one of those, but it's kind of the idea that you're working in a circle, everyone's kind of corralled. It's the old circle the wagons.
It's Minas Tirith, basically.
Okay.
Or Lord of the Rings.
See, that's an obscure reference. Who would ever have heard of Lord of the Rings?
February 4th. Peppermint Patty is in a little symbolic panel in panel 1 where she's wedged between a true and a false that are floating above her head. We then cut to inside her classroom where she is sitting behind Franklin taking a test. She says to herself, question number 1, true. She leans into the test. True again, false. Now she lifts up the paper as she contemplates. True, by golly, and false, and true, and true. Now she's back scribbling on the paper. False again, there's no doubt about it. Now she's really getting wound up. True, that one is absolutely true. False, 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 true. She's yelling. Now she's screaming. Oh, I say, this one is really false. True, false, true, false, true, false. True, by golly, true. She's shaking. Franklin turns around and says, Psst, Patty. Patty, bleary-eyed, says, Huh? What? What's the matter, huh? Franklin says, You're getting kind of loud. Peppermint Patty composes herself, says, How embarrassing. It's easy to get carried away in these true or false tests.
Well, I must say it is much funnier when you read it. I need you to read all of these to me.
This one, oh my God. I laugh to myself every true false test I took for the rest of my life thinking of this one.
I remember this strip as a kid, because I was a student about this age when this strip came out. And yeah, as you performed it, it's kind of how I remember it myself as a reader, because, it's such a huge part of your life, right? When you're a little kid, you're doing these tests. And I don't know when the true false test was invented, but I'm guessing it didn't exist too many decades before this.
Right.
I haven't seen it in ancient literature. It's not quoted in Cymbeline. The Beaker people knew nothing of true and false. Yeah, let's leave all that laughter in. That's very gratifying.
Oh, I will.
The Beaker people knew nothing. Oh, I'm choking now. Okay, listen, I love the the sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels that are just Peppermint Patty at the desk. I just love every one of those drawings. That last one where she has 4 arms going up and down is great. And that, oh, I say, this one is really false. I love that one. So good.
Oh man, and the looseness in Schulz's
Yes.
art here in certain cases. Now we've talked about it before when someone's getting like when Snoopy's getting beaten up by the cat and all of that when he mistakes Woodstock for the yellow glove. But there's just even that first panel. You're always saying that the top tier of the Sunday strips, which is a throwaway, Schulz is often taking tremendous liberties with. Yeah, that true or false that he's drawn in there and that kind of balloon lettering is pretty wonky and pretty fun.
It's very wonky. He's definitely, over the years, simplified the way he draws Franklin's skin tone. The earlier ones, I think he was trying to go for a more, not realistic, but maybe a more graduated shading as it like curved. And this one, now it's just simple pen lines, and I think it reads a lot better. Although not necessary, really, in the Sunday strip, if you think about it.
That's true. I wonder. Obviously he thought that it was important that the line art was consistent, regardless of what he's had available to him. Yeah.
All right. Now the next strip we're going to talk about is February 17th, but this is part of a really long sequence where the gang gets together and decide that they're going to throw a testimonial dinner for Charlie Brown. And it's a comedy of errors, and eventually, what else should we say about it? Well, one thing that is important is that they invite Joe Shlabotnik, Charlie Brown's favorite player.
It's a recipe for success,
right? Exactly, and he has a fee, but he accepts whatever they offer, which was like 50 cents or a quarter or something like that. And then at the end, they decide that, well, we're all hypocrites for even having this dinner, and they don't have it. Now, I've often said, sometimes Schulz doesn't stick the landing. I encourage everyone to read this whole story. But this is the finale of it. And the dinner has not happened. They've all decided it would be hypocritical to honor Charlie Brown. And they all go home. And then we're with Linus, who's in his bed. And he says to himself, this is February 17th, who in the world could be calling at 3 o'clock in the morning? Then we see him go out to the living room and answer the phone. Who? No, the dinner was canceled. Well, it's a long story. He continues talking on the phone, saying, yes, we were wondering what had happened to you. I'm sorry you got lost. All right, maybe next time. And then the last panel, Linus signs off saying, "Good night, Mr. Shlabotnik."
Oh.
I think that's hilarious. I think that is such a great ending to this story.
Yeah, I think that is a great ending. I'm just kind of baffled by the whole thing where Linus makes the case for why they should honor him in the very first strip.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's slowly, one by one, they're all like, oh, this is hypocritical. I think Linus is very sincere in that first strip.
Yes.
He has no secondary reasoning. He's not trying to get stuff from the Great Pumpkin. Even you could question his sincerity for the Great Pumpkin, but here, this is really sweet of him. He's a dedicated baseball manager. The guy doesn't get any respect. We're going to give him respect. But then even Linus, this is not the Linus I remember. He seems to have been talked out of his own strong feeling that this is something they should go out of their way to do. And I don't quite get it. I guess I don't need to, but I was kind of surprised that Linus backs down on his own and doesn't fight for Charlie Brown. It doesn't fight for the very thing that he tried to happen in the first place,
Yeah, I definitely can see that. Michael, do you have anything you want to weigh in on that one? That storyline or that strip in particular?
The storyline, I thought it was really cruel.
Really?
No, I have no objection to cruelty. But it was exceptionally cruel thing.
In art. You have...
Oh, I don't like torture animals or anything.
Good, all right. Just wanted to
Yeah.
get that on the record.
Right. Yeah, were you happy to see Violet show up in this story?
Yeah, she only gets 3 this year, but that's 3 times as many as Patty, so...
Now, what is it about the cruelty in this version that you find harsher than cruelty maybe we've seen before? What is it more, what's amped up in this one?
Well, I'd have to reread it to remember all the bits, but just after you've done it, then to back down is worse than not having done it at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sense.
Whereas, like, it would almost be maybe in an earlier version, it might have been something cooked up by Patty and Violet.
Yeah. We're not going to invite you to our party.
Yeah, that kind of type of thing. Right. Interesting. Well, yeah, I definitely hear what you guys are saying about that, but I have to say that last strip literally made me laugh out loud. I thought that was great, and I love the silhouettes.
Yeah, those are great.
Have you guys ever heard the like the cartooning theory that when you're designing a character, they should be identifiable by the silhouettes?
Yes, that's very animation kind of styled.
Yeah.
Theory that if something looks good and understandable in a silhouette, you've really done a good job as an artist, a cartoonist.
Yeah. Oh, this is something I was cleaning the old Ameliaverse, and I found that old notebook of mine that had the little random sequence generator for how to create comic strips under a deadline, and the format of strips that I chose to model it on was 1968 Peanuts.
Really?
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't bring it this time, but next time I think I might bring it on because it just shows how many different types of joke formats he was able to do in 4 panels. So, and I just thought it was interesting. It has nothing to do with my work. Like, this was just stuff I identified in his work. So I'm going to bring it on next time and we could look at it because it's pretty fascinating what he does.
Yeah. So he doesn't actually have to write the script. He can just say like number 48.
Number 48. That's it. March 23rd. Linus is at the mailbox and he's reading something that he's got in the mail. And in panel 2, he's very upset by this. Oh, no. Then in panel 3, we see Lucy come up to him and he's visibly distraught. He says, "I knew this was going to happen sometime. My blanket has been recalled."
This is actually an obscurity. Now, I was surprised that this wasn't the beginning of a sequence because I think it's a really good setup.
Yeah.
But it's a total standalone, and he's just commenting. I think the first car recalls were that year.
So was this the Pinto isn't recalled until the next year, and that's the one I remember.
The Pinto, yes.
The big deal. Like was that the Nader one? Ralph Nader was really going after the Pinto because it was Corvair.
Yeah.
That sounds
anyway,
right,
he's commenting on something that's new in the culture.
I had no idea until this moment. That's very interesting.
Ah.
Right, because the term unsafe at any speed, I don't know if anybody has heard that before, but it was a book that came out in 1965, and the subtitle was The Design and Dangers of the American Automobile. And, we're used to recalls all the time that, the plastic cup holder might tip, snap off and you're going to spill coffee on yourself. But these were really big deals in cars being very dangerous. And because there wasn't a system for the government really to properly deal with it, there were these activists, including Ralph Nader, who were working really hard to get the car companies to fess up if the word comes out, or if the government is seeing more and more people are dying because a gas tank exploded. Mm-hmm. That's all new here in 73. And I was thinking of the same thing, Michael, when I saw that strip. I was like, wow, that's topical. And it's at least in you, from you and me, the concept of that, we can tie it back to that era. It's an obscurity that we kind of get. But
that's amazing. No, I had no idea. I would have liked to see this expanded into a whole series. I think that could have been very fun.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, he could have gone all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, he's not doing a lot with the blanket.
Yeah,
anymore. I mean, he tried like a million. He had like so many great blanket jokes. I guess you run out at some point.
Right. When you think about what you're milking for 20 years, it's a blanket.
Milking the old blanket.
But you know someone for 20 years, 25 years, longer, coming up on 30 years, and every once in a while you just see something and you go, oh, I know he's going to like this. So I knew Michael was going to love March 24th. Snoopy is lying atop his doghouse. In panel 1, his eyes are wide open. In panel 2, they close. He is lying there calmly. In panel 3, a smile crosses his face. I did it. And then in panel 4, a picture of serene calmness. Snoopy thinks to himself, I'm in the alpha states.
This is the only strip that more than one of us picked.
Interesting.
Yeah, me and Jimmy both picked this one. To me, this is like harkening back to the greatest Peanut strips.
And why is that? Because to some people, they may not even know exactly what the alpha state is.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Well, again, it was sort of a contemporary fad that was going on that people were talking about and probably making jokes. Probably Johnny Carson was making jokes about this stuff. Yeah, it's just one of those little perfect strips that there's almost nothing here, but he nails it.
So were people using particular practices like meditation to try to get to this thing? Is that what was going on in the early 70s?
And they were doing like isolation tanks, and they were doing drugs, and they were doing meditation, yoga, and it's like you bliss out basically. But it's basically just funny because you reach it by doing nothing.
Oh, wow. I've just been looking around on the internet while we're talking here, and there's a cover. This is the May-June 1973 issue, so this is right on top of when Schulz is doing this gag. This magazine called Elementary Electronics, and it shows this woman in a bikini, and she's upside down, so we basically see her from kind of the midriff, and then her head and her hair are kind of halfway down this.
Wait, what? This podcast is taking a weird turn all of a sudden.
Very orange
Does
and
she
brown.
have a sailor hat?
No, she's got one of those really thin like tennis sweatband kind of things with wires coming out of it, and she's looking like all blissed out like Snoopy is. And it says on the cover, she's tuned to her alpha waves in the coolest font you've ever seen. Discover how electronic biofeedback helps you explore your body's complex electrochem activities.
Yeah.
Monitor the complex signals from your brain.
Yeah, you can build your own biofeedback gizmos, probably in Popular Mechanics and stuff. I never tried that, but I'm sure it worked.
Well,
there's a thing on CB radios
none of
too.
that.
So.
He just is in his natural pose, and he achieves it.
Yeah, but he does need it because he's normally seeking to find a new identity, and here he's at peace with being.
Oh no, I just meant he didn't need any kind of gizmos to achieve.
No, of course not.
All right. So with that, how about we take a break? We go get a drink and a snack, and then we meet you on the other side of these very important messages.
Sounds great. Have a Dolly Madison cake.
So good.
Hi, everyone. You've heard us rave about the Estabrook Radio 914. And what episode would be complete without mention of the Fab Four? Now you can wear our obsessions proudly with Unpacking Peanuts t-shirts. We have a brand new Be of Good Cheer pen nib design, along with the four of us crossing Abbey Road. And of course, Michael, Jimmy, and Harold at the Thinkin' Wall. Collect them all. Trade them with your friends. Order your t-shirts today at unpackingpeanuts.com/store.
And we're back. I had a tasty cake, to be honest. B.A. Pride. All right, back to the strips. March 26th. All right, here's a moment in history, and also one of the weirder Peanuts things that ever happens. Lucy says, comes up and says hello to her little brother, who we're seeing for the first time. She says, "Come on, Rerun, I'm going to take you for a little walk." Then she holds his hand. Rerun is very tiny. But he's older than the 1-year-old he would be. And she says to him, "It's about time you got to look at the outside world." She shows him the outside world, trees and flowers and grass and a little cobblestone walk. And she says, "Well, what do you think?" And Rerun thinks to himself, "You mean this is it?"
What have the Van Pelt's been doing to poor Rerun? He hasn't been outside.
He hasn't been outside in a year. I'm telling you, This is a weird family. These parents need to be looked into.
Well, he's got a little play blocks next to him. It's one that says B2 on two sides. But I think he needs vitamin D.
Yeah, he definitely needs a little of the sunshine for sure.
Yeah. Now, am I just having a deja vu? Because did he use this gag before with one of the other little kids?
Maybe. I couldn't swear to it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it certainly could happen.
It's a great gag, but it seemed familiar to me, and I hadn't read this. It's also weird that he hadn't shown up since he was born, which must have been like 6 months before, because usually,
I think it's a year, right?
Maybe it's a year, but he usually had, Schulz really liked doing the baby stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had no baby gags.
Lucy was a little baby when she started.
Right. So was Schroeder, really.
And he had a little baby in his house at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and babies were all around him at that point, and now I don't think he's quite a granddad yet, right?
Yeah, I don't think so, no.
So he skips that whole part of childhood. He wants to get a new character in the mix, and he just it's like, I better introduce him now so I can kick in later with what I really want to do with Rerun.
Now, is his face Linus's face, essentially?
The eyes, nose, and parentheses combos are, I would say, exactly Linus's face.
He's got his older brother's parentheses.
And the head shape.
Yeah, he's got his older brother's the head shape, too. Yeah, he, too, was dropped on his head like Linus. Because it always looked like a dance. The one thing Schulz never quite settles on, or maybe, if from my point of view, maybe never quite nails, is Rerun's hair. I actually think this version of Rerun's hair is the best version of Rerun's hair. And towards the end, he starts giving it that bird's nest look.
Bird nest, yeah.
But that version of Rerun, the character from the 90s, is my favorite. He's a great character.
So he was born on May 23rd, 1972. So we are just about 10 months out from that.
And that brings us to March 31st. So our less than a year old kid, who is, he's been aged up sitcom style. So he's probably about 2, he looks here. Lucy and Charlie Brown are standing on the baseball field. They're wearing their baseball hats. And Charlie Brown says, "I don't know, Lucy." And then in panel 2, we see that Lucy and Charlie Brown are looking at Rerun, who is standing out in left field in a ball cap and glove. And Charlie Brown continues saying, "I wonder if a little kid like Rerun should be out in left field. A fly ball would kill him." Then in panel 4, we see Rerun running away from a fly ball. And Lucy says, "Not if he runs from it." I picked this because I literally laughed out loud at "a fly ball would kill him." That combined with Charlie Brown going, "I don't know, Lucy." Could there be a better example of Charlie Brown being a terrible manager? He's thinking, I definitely know a fly ball would kill him, but I guess we could give him a few plays out there.
Yeah, it is odd because Charlie Brown is usually like has these blazing drives like go right over his head, right through him, basically.
Right.
Which would kill anyone, but
right. I wouldn't put Rerun out there. Although I guess he's taking Lucy's place in left, so maybe if those are your two options, maybe you do go with Rerun.
No, is that true? I always thought Lucy was in right.
Lucy eventually gets relegated to right, but the last few times we've seen him talking about her, it's been actually in center field, I think.
That makes no sense.
No, that's because I think I did mention it at one point. I'm like, that is absolutely another example of Charlie Brown being a terrible manager. Just hide her in right field.
Yeah. I just noticed, often in design, if you're drawing an animated cartoon character, whatever, you design them by the number of heads high that they are, right? So
right.
Because in real life, what the average person is like 6 or maybe 7 heads high. Mm-hmm. And but in this case, I think Rerun is like 2.5 baseball mitts high.
Right. He's kind of like the Calvin and Hobbes proportions.
Yes.
Of Calvin anyway. Yeah. April 8th, we see in panel 1 a tree which has a heart, 2 hearts, and an arrow carved into it. The arrow has missed the hearts though. And then in panel 2, we see it's Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty leaning up against their favorite tree. Peppermint Patty says, I'm sort of curious about something. Do you think you'll ever get married, Chuck? And Charlie Brown says, oh, I suppose so. Just about everyone does. Peppermint Patty gives him the old side eye, looks over his shoulder and says, what kind of girl do you think you'll marry? Charlie Brown says, well, I always kind of hate to talk about those things because it may sound silly, but I'd like a girl who would call me poor sweet baby. Peppermint Patty bolts upright and says, poor sweet baby. Charlie Brown, smiling, says, uh-huh. If I was feeling tired or depressed or something like that, she'd cuddle up close to me, kiss me on the ear and whisper, poor sweet baby. Peppermint Patty is having none of this, stands up, walks away saying, forget it, Chuck, it'll never happen. But in the next panel, as Charlie Brown watches her walk away, Snoopy comes up and then kisses his master on the ear, saying, poor sweet baby. Smack.
How did Snoopy hear that?
He's a dog. Dogs have great ears.
Oh, okay. That's right. He uses this poor sweet baby thing a bunch of times this year.
Lots of callbacks.
This is a reference. This is a Jeannie Schulz thing.
Is it?
Yes.
Now, when you say that, what's the story? What do you know?
I do not know the details, but I know it is related to her and what she would call him. I could look up the details for next episode.
Okay, because I, as a kid, when I read Charlie Brown just kind of going into what he was thinking about this, I remember as a kid going, hey, that's not a half bad dream. That's kind of nice that someone would do that to you when you're down. And yeah, it made an impression on me as a kid, and I was very happy Charlie Brown got a smooch from Snoopy.
Yes, very, very cute. Yeah, it was a term Jeannie frequently called Schulz, and which in turn Schulz frequently used in the strip.
Okay, I thought he was trying to create a catchphrase, but apparently not.
Well, both, I think.
Yeah, both. I think both, for sure. I love, drawing-wise, I love panel 2, tier 2, with Peppermint Patty giving the side eye.
Yeah, this year Peppermint Patty shows her hand a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see if we picked any of those strips where she's conflicted in the previous year, I remember, and you have reason to believe she really likes him, but then she's not willing to admit that she likes him. But it seems like she's moving into I do like Chuck.
Yeah,
she's going to admit it a little bit more now, which is a really interesting dynamic. In particular, he has somebody new in his life as well, and it's kind of cool that he has an outlet to kind of show issues of affection like that in the strip.
Yeah, I can't really think of another kid strip or comic strip featuring kids where you would have a boy and girl character having those kind of discussions previous to this.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I think that's cool. It's like, and it's not in a romantic sense between the two of them. It's talking about romance.
Right.
But in this strip, it's contemplating, what would be an ideal relationship, and that it's done in kind of this sweet way. I mean, it's what Charlie Brown is wishing would happen to him, but you kind of get the sense that he'd be that same way too to someone if he wasn't clueless
right
at the moment.
Right. It makes me think that we're talking about like Linus was more contemplative earlier. What's contemplative is the strip, right? And what's contemplative is Schulz. Mm-hmm. What he's contemplating has changed. Mm-hmm. So the mouthpieces he's using to contemplate them has changed, right? This is very real stuff for Schulz over the last few years.
Yeah, and I think that's what I miss in Linus right now is that Linus was often the one who got to go to those deeper philosophical, religious places, and it just doesn't seem to be where Schulz is in the moment. So that aspect of Linus is kind of cloaked for the moment.
I always took it as Linus was maybe just okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like Linus contemplating a bunch of stuff. When you win a lot of, maybe not always, certainly not always, but sometimes when you're contemplating deep and profound things, you're doing it actually out of a sense of insecurity, or
lack.
Or yeah, right. And maybe he's at a point where it's not to the focus of his mind because he's sort of made peace with it.
Yeah, I can see that you could read it that way.
Either way, we're reading it into it, though, so. But that's what I'm choosing to put on it. April 16th. Okay, so this is the end of a sequence where we should talk about this. I talked about the last one. Harold, can you give us a summary of the baseball game?
Okay, so this is a long sequence, and it's interesting that a rerun is introduced and is immediately dropped into this conceit that he is going to be the new baseball player on Charlie Brown's team. It's like Charlie Brown and Schulz have just brought him up into the leagues here as part of the strips and the characters and the baseball team. And so the idea is, can rerun play, and what is it like with a team that he does play? And we see that he's running away from the baseballs when they're hit at him, and he's having to go up to bat, and he doesn't know anything about batting. But he's so tiny, like we said, he's Calvin and Hobbes high. He's about 2 heads high, 2.5 mitts high. And so it's impossible in this story for one of the pitchers in the game that they're playing to get it through that middle between, was it the knees and I'm not a baseball guy,
the knees and
shoulders.
Like the top of the letters on your chest, yeah.
So they can't throw it in that little tiny area, and so he's walking them all the time. And so the story goes, even Charlie Brown's not aware of this. Linus has to point it out. As if I remember this right, he's going to win the game if they can't throw it over and make a strike, and that's what happens. They win a game, and everyone's rejoicing. And Charlie Brown says, "I think I'm going to cry." And Charlie Brown, and there's a lovely strip which I don't think we picked, where Charlie Brown's in bed at night. And he's just remembering the day, and we won our first game of the season. I can't believe it. Wonder how the other team feels. And then he stops. And he goes, I don't know. When we lose, I'm miserable. When we win, I feel guilty.
Yes.
It's so classic Charlie Brown. Yeah. And so unique. That's such a unique, lovely strip for Charlie Brown. But what happens is that Charlie Brown gets a phone call late at night to come to this bicycle repair shop, and Linus comes with him, and that leads into this strip that we're about to read here.
Well, before we get to the strip, I want to have a historical interjection.
It's time for the Peanuts Time Machine.
The fact that he's so small that no one could throw a strike, his strikes on there's a historical precedence to this.
Okay.
Really?
Okay, early 50s, this guy named Bill Veeck was the manager of the Pirates, and he was a real showman. He liked doing crazy things to get the fans happy. He hired a dwarf.
Really?
Whose name was Eddie something or other, I can't remember, and had him stashed in the dugout, and at a critical moment of the game, he had the dwarf come out and walk. I think he only had one at bat in his life, but it was an important at bat. He
Wow.
Anyway,
My favorite team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I learned something new today.
how come you don't know that? Read a book called...
I don't know that. That's,
All right, Veek, Veeck. He wrote a book called Veck as in Wreck. He was the manager, and he would pull all these stunts like that. Read it.
yeah, it's not the first thing they talk about on their website these days.
Okay. Well, look him up. Interesting guy.
That's wild.
That's very cool. That's very
You're a
cool.
Pirate fan.
So on April 16th, they're at the bicycle repair shop, and Charlie Brown says, "Yes, sir, I'm the team manager, and this is our second baseman, Linus Van Pelt. And you're the league president? We're very glad to know you, sir. You have a very nice bicycle repair shop here," Charlie Brown says as he looks around. Then he concludes, "One of my great regrets is that I never got to meet Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis."
Okay.
That's not an
Another
obscurity
Pete.
for me. I know this guy.
Do you really?
You know him. You
Yeah,
know
he
him.
was
Well,
the
tell
commissioner
us
of
the story.
baseball. And
Yeah.
his parents named him Kennesaw Mountain because he lived on Kennesaw Mountain.
Of course.
Wow, they're
Stands to
creative.
reason.
So he would have been commissioner in 1973?
No,
No.
it would have been much earlier, I think.
He was the first commissioner of baseball.
Oh, is that right?
And he ruled over the Black Sox scandal. That's why there was a commissioner of baseball because of well, what's the story of the Black Sox scandal, Michael?
No, the White Sox were basically paid to throw the World Series.
Throughout the series, yeah.
I mean, that was a huge deal. People were losing faith and fed up with baseball because they're following these teams, right?
That's
the
where
full
the
year.
famous "Say It Ain't So" Joe comes from.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause
Shoeless
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yeah, and in 1919, there was other things to worry about.
Yeah, well, and then but you lose this part of America you thought you trusted, and so Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis was known for being super tough, and that's why all these guys got thrown out of baseball. There was no mercy here, and this guy kind of restored people's confidence in baseball, and he was there for a number of years in that role, and he also was a bicycle racer, which is I think where the joke is. They're in this bicycle store, and it's reminding Charlie Brown of Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
Boy, this makes the Thomas Wolfe thing look.
Man, this is an educational podcast.
You know what?
We should get credits for listening to this.
Yeah,
And this is free, people. Free. Unbelievable. But you know what? If you did want to support us, I'm not saying you have to, but if you did want to, you could go over to unpackingpeanuts.com. You could buy us some mud pie.
For
You could buy one
a
of our
million
shirts.
and a quarter.
that's right. We're trying to get the down payment at least for that.
Yeah, so
coffee
cough
grounds.
up, people. Come on.
Cough up for the coffee grounds.
Exactly. That's our
That's our campaign.
That's our campaign. Cough up for the coffee grounds. We're going to try to get 3.9 million. April 21st, we find out what has really happened is, unfortunately, even though Charlie Brown's team has won the game, they have had to now forfeit it because there was some illegal gambling involved on the game. And turns out that Rerun, who did not know it was wrong because he's 10 months old, bet a nickel on...
That's why a 10-month-old gambled.
Yeah, bet a nickel. This seems, by the way, like growing up in Gerardville, none of this seems that weird. Anyway, so Rerun bet on the team. He bet a nickel that they would win, and now that's unfortunately caused them to lose the game. And we conclude here with Charlie Brown and Snoopy sitting on the bench. And Charlie Brown says, "There's one thing I still don't understand. Rerun bet a nickel that our team would win. Who did he bet with? Who bet against us?" And we see Snoopy rolls his eyes skyward and tries to look innocent as he whistles. But it's clear it was Snoopy.
Snoopy. Snoopy, and so a dog and a 10-month-old gamble over a game, and a commissioner of baseball finds out about this. This is peanut surreal. Let me tell you, this is amazing.
Who's the rat?
But frankly,
Yeah, right.
If you think about it, if he was going to throw the game to make money, he wouldn't bet they'd win. He'd make them lose.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the Pete Rose argument, right? I bet, but I bet on us to win.
That's nothing wrong with that. You always want to try to win.
Yeah, and yet that's the rule. That's the rule. What do you think? Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame?
Who?
think Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. And while we're talking about it, Big Star needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. April 25th.
Wait, hold on,
No.
hold on. Well, I just wanted to point out on April 20th. I'm not terribly familiar with Rerun, but I see a catchphrase for the first time that I'm pretty sure shows up a lot after this, where he's holding up his little baby bottle, talking to Lucy, and he says, "I'll drink to that."
That Linus did that once. I'm pretty sure.
Does that
when he was a
continue with
baby.
Rerun? Am I hallucinating here?
I don't want to give spoilers. People are going to need to tune in.
All right then. Okay, so maybe this is a first, at least for Rerun. But he's learned it from his big brother while they were shut up inside the house for 10 months.
April 25th. Snoopy has decided he's done waiting for the new Miss Helen Sweet story and is writing his own ripoff version. It is called...
Hey.
it is called...
This is a minor classic.
It's a minor classic. It is called The Bunnies, A Tale of Mirth and Woe.
Oh, yes.
Ha ha ha, laughed the bunnies. Ha 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 ha. Snoopy then looks at us and says, "So much for the mirth."
Oh my God, what's going to happen to the bunnies? I can't take this.
Whoa.
This is a minor classic. Oh my goodness. I want to see this book in its entirety.
Well, we should put that in on our pitch when we want to do the Miss Helen Sweet story books. We should also have a first option on the bunnies.
A tale of mirth and woe. He just gets right into it. These stories, he's not talking about the clouds scudding against the sky and for the first 3 pages. It goes right into ha ha ha.
Which, if we're being critical, that is the problem with You Can't Go Home Again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You get
lots of scudding.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah. April 27th. Snoopy is dictating something to Woodstock, who is typing on the world's smallest typewriter. Can you imagine what the paper looks like on this?
It's
Can
a
you
postage
imagine
stamp.
getting this?
It's on the stamp. You don't even have to mail a postcard. It's just the stamp.
He's typing kindest regards, and then in panel 2 we see Snoopy, and then underneath the signature is S/W, and then Snoopy hops away, and Woodstock finishes up by typing dictated but not read.
I have to admit, I don't get it.
Well, the SW means Snoopy dictated it / Woodstock typed it. That was like a secretarial code.
Okay.
Now, and so this is kind of an obscurity in and of itself. So I found out about this dictated but not read through a book. I believe it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He has this great story in there about how he had written a letter to somebody, and he had received a letter back. It was like a famous writer or something he was enamored with. And they sent back the letter, and it was typed, and below it said dictated but not read. And he was like, wow, this guy's so busy, and he bothered to write me. And so he wrote me, and he dictated, but he didn't read it. That's so cool. So he wrote another letter to a famous person, and he thought, okay, I'm going to try to impress them. And so at the bottom, he typed his own letter, but then at the bottom he wrote dictated but not read in the typewriter. And he got back this letter from the author saying, "Your bad manners are exceeded only by your bad manners."
Wow.
I've never forgotten that. Oh my gosh. It was busted.
Wowza. Jeepers. I promise that if you write to me, I wouldn't do that. I probably won't respond at all, but I won't do that. Oh, sometimes I do. May 2nd. Charlie Brown and Lucy are at the thinking wall, and Charlie Brown says, "Someone has said that we should live each day as if it were the last day of our life." Lucy freaks out, screaming, "Og, this is the last day. This is it. I only have 24 hours left. Help me! Help me! This is the last day. Og!" And Charlie Brown goes back to leaning on his hand and says, "Some philosophies aren't for all people."
That's a great Lucy.
That's a classic.
Yeah. Yeah, you've heard that slogan a million times and never really thought about it. You're supposed to go like, a flower. I will appreciate a flower.
Yeah, this is such a funny one, and Schulz revisits it with a later strip, which we'll maybe hear next week. That, it's just so funny. I love this classic stuff.
Classic. May 4th. Sally is writing something on a piece of paper in her very nice cursive handwriting. She writes, "Butterflies are free." In the next panel, as we see Charlie Brown come up and observe her writing, she continues, "What does this mean?" "It means you can have all of them you want." Then she looks at Charlie Brown and says, "So much for higher thought."
This is a contemporary reference to a book, I believe.
A play. It was a play.
Oh,
and a movie.
It was a play?
Yeah, it was a play in 1969, and then it made a movie in 1972.
Oh, yeah.
With Goldie Hawn.
And you could blame Charles Schulz for all of this, because I think the Happiness is a Warm Puppy just started a huge industry of little happy little thoughts you can think.
Feel good aphorism type things.
Yeah.
Butterflies are free. I'm trying to think if I've seen this. Was it Eddie Albert's son?
Yes.
Was also like Edward Albert was in it?
Yes.
Did you? You've seen it?
It's real good. I thought it was a great movie.
It won at least one Academy Award, so yeah.
May 6th. Snoopy is sitting in a mailbox waiting for something. Then in the next panel, he's typing away at his typewriter. Then in the next panel, he's checking the mailbox, which it does seem as if there is something that has arrived for him. So in the next panel, he is reading what has arrived, and it says, "Dear contributor, we regret to inform you that your manuscript does not suit our present needs. The editors." Next panel, Snoopy is screaming, "Ugh!" while he crumbles the paper and clenches his fists. Then, in the next panel, bam, he kicks the mailbox, bending the stake that it's in. Then, in the next panel, he totally shatters the stake by headbutting it. And in the final panel, he reduces the mailbox to complete rubble by stomping on it. Stomp, 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 stomp. Then, wham, he kicks whatever was left of it away. The little flag flying. Then, the next to last panel, all flustered, he looks down at the piece of paper again, picks it up and reads, "P.S. Don't take it out on your mailbox."
Those are some prescient editors.
That's as distorted as Snoopy's ever gotten.
Yeah.
The last tier, second panel.
Now, Harold, you've talked about there is a whole sort of run of Snoopy in this era where he gets really angry at things. A lot of it's kind of focused on tennis and stuff.
Yeah, I remember being really disturbed by how violently Snoopy he just becomes this blur of shaky lines and clenched teeth, and he just starts to fly away or fall apart artistically. You really feel the anger and the frustration. I remember as a kid, like 10 years old, like, whoa, that's intense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't relate to this very specific thing, actually. I love that next to last panel, rather, where his hair's all messed up. I think that's a really, really cute drawing.
Reminds me of another artist, and I can't place it. I'm trying to think
Rembrandt?
Who that's maybe.
Oh man. May 10th. Baseball time. Lucy is talking to Charlie Brown. They look like they're out in the outfield. Lucy says, "You don't think I care about all the games we lose, do you, Charlie Brown? Well, I'll have you know that I spend a lot of time out here in center field, and most of it is spent crying." And she really looks upset. She continues in panel 3 as she points at the grass and says, "See, the grass is extra green all around this spot where I stand and water it with my tears." Charlie Brown just walks back to the mound saying, "That's very touching."
That is really good sarcasm.
Or is it?
Well, that is a Van Pelt trait for sure.
Yeah, so is Rerun going to start to be a little more sarcastic as we go along?
Oh, yeah. Rerun is the quirkiest kid out of all of them, ultimately, and a complete iconoclast. But we'll have to wait a few decades to really see that. May 16th, Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty are hanging out under their favorite tree, and Peppermint Patty asks Charlie Brown, "Do you like me more than I like you, Chuck?" Which is a pretty weird question to ask someone. And Charlie Brown says, "I don't know. Do you like me more than I like you?" This sort of surprises Peppermint Patty, and she contemplates it. And then in panel 4, she says, "Let's not play lovers games, Chuck." That's a great punchline.
Which is used more than once, right, in his career with this, at least in the animation, right?
It's definitely used in the animation, yes.
You sly dog. That's the other thing.
You sly dog. What do you think of those silhouettes? I think they're beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the reproduction of it. It looks like maybe this was never reprinted, and they had to, or they pulled it off of something not a, immaculate proof. I don't know.
Yeah, we'd have to. I'm not looking at the book. I'm looking at it on.
I'm looking at the book. Yeah, does it look really crisp on the GoComics.com?
No, it looks
so
really ratty on screen.
Or maybe it was. Well, no, I guess. Who knows? Anyway, it's you can tell that this was not from the most pristine reproduction.
Oh yeah, like if you look at the very next strip that we're going to discuss, which is May 26th. I'm just looking on GoComics, and it's really crystal clear. This is the end of another sequence where, Michael, do you want to explain this one?
I think it's a really good sequence because they want to do a charity event.
Yes.
And they're kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're not going to do anything too heavy. So they come up with, is it stomach ache?
Stomach
aches,
end up with
yes. Charity for stomach aches. And so Marcy's going door to door asking for people to contribute or buy tickets to this charity event for stomach aches and has no luck.
And this is the end where she's freaking out and she's yelling at Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty and Snoopy. "I tried to sell those tickets. I really tried. But every place I went, they slammed the door in my face. I couldn't take it. I tried and tried and tried." She's now sitting on the ground, reverting almost to being a toddler and screaming, "Wah!" But Snoopy has his time-honored technique of kissing the blues away by kissing her on the cheek and saying, "Poor sweet baby."
Poor sweet baby.
Yeah. This is one of Marcy's first real big starring roles here.
You get to see.
What do you guys think of Marcy?
I like Marcy.
She's developing.
Yeah, she's obviously she's a hard worker and she's very loyal, but she's got an emotional side too that we're getting to see here. She's not. I'm sure she would rather we not see this, but she lets us see it, and I think it. She's pretty adorable here. I mean, you just kind of feel for her because she is the only one actually that we know of who dared try to sell these things, and got so much rejection. And yeah, I know what that's like. I mean, did you guys ever have to go around selling stuff for this or that, a band or for baseball?
A Catholic
team?
School? Are you kidding?
Oh my gosh!
Absolutely. Every single year we had to do. Like the candy sale.
The Girl Scouts had the stuff that sold itself. The Boy Scouts were selling soap on a rope. It was the worst. Or they would get, or some food company would come along and you'd have these little plastic barrels of processed cheese you're trying to sell people. Oh, it was murder.
Wow. Now, one year I went all in at school, and I sold the third most in the whole school, and I got a pocket fishing rod.
Oh, was it a pocket fisherman, the Ronco, or?
Yes, it was the Ron Popeil pocket fisherman.
Congratulations!
Yes.
That must have been
Thank you.
Amazing. Did you go fishing with the Ron Popeil pocket fisherman?
Yes, I did. I never caught fish.
Well, yes.
And I didn't go fishing once or twice. I went fishing a lot.
Yeah.
Never caught a fish.
I think that's maybe why the pocket fisherman did not ultimately become a staple. Like you go to the Dollar Tree.
Ron Popeil. Yeah. I didn't catch a fish with a variety of instruments.
Okay. It's not necessarily Ron Popeil's fault.
No, it was most likely my fault, my impatience. But speaking of being impatient, we're all going to have to be a little patient because we got to break it here. And then we're going to come back next week and discuss the rest of 1973. We're also going to have to talk about whether or not we're going to break off the famous Mr. Sack sequence into its own series, or its own episode, rather, just because that's Mr. Schultz's favorite. But we'll figure that out in between now and then. If you want to hang out with the gang for the week in between, you can go onto our website and you can email us at unpackingpeanuts. You could find us on Instagram and Twitter where we're at unpackpeanuts. On Facebook, we're Unpacking Peanuts. And yeah, we would love to hear from you. So go onto our website. You could support us by buying one of our books, buying a t-shirt, or just buying us a mud pie, or even checking out our Patreon. We would love to hear from you one way or the other. So come back next week where we're going to finish up 1973. Until then, for Michael and Harold, this is Jimmy. Be of good cheer.
Yes.
Yes.
Be of good cheer.
Be of good cheer.
Unpacking Peanuts is copyright Jimmy Gownley, Michael Cohen, and Harold Buchholz. Produced and edited by Liz Sumner. Music by Michael Cohen. Additional voiceover by Aziza Shakrala Clark. For more from the show, follow Unpack Peanuts on Instagram and Twitter, Unpacking Peanuts on Facebook and YouTube. For more about Jimmy, Michael, and Harold, visit unpackingpeanuts.com. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.
Oh my goodness.